Hi, this is Amrita Sukumar, and I'm bringing to you this podcast called Unsettling. Look around you. Everyone is trying to create their own story. Make a tiny change in someone's life by just following their passion and in turn, inspiring the others to follow suit. This podcast brings to you stories of people who have defied the definition of settled set by the society and have created their own. They have found happiness in their version of settled. What is yours? Welcome back to another episode of Unsettling. Today we have with us someone who reminds me of a dialogue from the movie Bunty और Bubbly, where Amitabh Bachchan ji says, "ये world है ना world, इसमें दो तरह के लोग होते हैं, एक जो सारी जिंदगी एक ही काम करते रहते हैं और दूसरे जो एक ही जिंदगी में सारे काम कर देते हैं." Our guest today is certainly the latter kind. He completed his industrial engineering from IIT Roorkee and started his career in the CNC Machine shop of a large automobile manufacturing firm. He then moved into advertising and worked with big brands like Nestle, HP, Hindustan Times, Caltex, and Eicher. After he already had around 10 years of experience, he made yet another big and bold career move into human resources function in the software industry. His quick learning abilities and hard work led him to reach the vice president level fast. In 2008, he took another bold decision to set up his own business, which he led for over 5 years. He then moved to the US to lead HR functions for a large multinational IT organization in the Silicon Valley. In the meantime, somewhere on the way, he got himself trained as a wellness expert and a therapist. He is also on the board of Silicon Valley HR Network. An alumnus of IIT Roorkee, IIM Kolkata, and University of California, Berkeley, he's certainly a lifelong learner and a super achiever. I'm honored and excited to have Mr. Sudhir Saran Singh on my show today. Welcome to the podcast, Sudhir sir. How are you?
I'm good, and thanks for having me, Amrita. I'm truly excited to be part of your great podcast.
I'm excited too after the list out that I have done about whatever you have achieved till now. And I can see that from your introduction, you have changed your career multiple times. You are the epitome of unsettling. So how do you look at your adventurous journey?
Well, before I actually go to the journey, I must put in a caveat there. And I always, talk about this when, talking to people about various success stories or, about myself or even others. Mm-hmm. There is this thing called an autobiography effect. So when we are narrating a success story or anything good from the past, it comes out as a very well edited kind of a movie without any glitches, as if everything had been very smooth. So I just wanted to make sure that when I am talking about my journey, you or our listeners, they don't get a feeling that it was all a smooth ride and everything was hunky-dory. So of course there were various ups and downs, and we'll be talking about both today. So that is the caveat. That was a rider I wanted to put right at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I always get very excited when I look back at my journey, because God has been very kind and gave me all wonderful opportunities to do so much in my career so far. I think of working in manufacturing, and I remember machining components for Harley Davidson motorcycles. So it is a cult, and yes. Globally, Harley Davidson, everybody wants to own one and ride one, and making components for that was such a great thing. Manufacturing components for Mitsubishi trucks, which are again worldwide leaders. It's great high points. And then, when working with the advertising industry, working with creative talent like Shankar Mahadevan, Shantanu Moitra, Pradeep Sarkar, and Gracie Singh, and many other really creative folks. It was really wonderful. Incidentally, was part of the client servicing function, as well as used to do copywriting. So I also wrote quite a few ads and jingles, and even today when I think about those things, it gives me goosebumps. And then as part of the organizations, particularly being part of HR, played a very important role in building some great organizations like Eicher and Hughes and so on. So it's been a great, wonderful journey so far. And I'm looking forward to a lot more going forward. I would want to continue doing variety of things. When I'm talking about this, I also want to highlight that in any journey, and particularly when we talk about life or career, we are always evolving, and there are changes that are happening in our environment, and it is important for us to keep a track of our own evolution as well as the changes in the environment, and then go with what is the right thing to do, what really excites you. There are a lot of things which look glamorous from outside. In my journey, I realized that when you get into something, when you look at it from inside, everything is hard work, so be it manufacturing or advertising or HR or running one's own business, from outside it may look, wow, it's so nice and glamorous, but when you get inside, it's super hard work, and therefore it's important that whatever one does, and that has been one of the key things for me, that I must enjoy and have fun, because if I'm not having that, if I'm not enjoying, that means I'm in a wrong place. So these have been some of learnings and experiences in my journey so far, and really amazing. And as I said, really thankful to the Almighty for great journey.
Actually, when you spoke about the autobiography effect, I feel it is the same. I won't have such a big autobiography as yours, of course. But then when I look back, I realize that everything that has come till now has a link. And now when I look back, it feels very nice, very well knit when I'm narrating the story to someone else. But when I was going through it, it was really bad. And when you spoke about Harley Davidson, even I had a dream of owning one, which unfortunately my parents didn't allow. They said, "You're already tomboyish. You shall not be allowed to ride a bike." I don't have one now.
Incidentally, I did have a Royal Enfield for a few years, I think 5 or 6 years. I did have a Bullet motorcycle. And and we actually were the manufacturers. So Eicher was manufacturing, so it was our own product. So I had the privilege of not just owning one, but actually building them.
I'm glad that you did. Someday, maybe even I will have one. That's the dream, working towards it.
Awesome.
So, well, I would like to ask you, how did you decide on engineering as your first career?
Well, decide is a great term, and as again the autobiography effect, so when we look back, it appears we planned for it and we decided. But it's a very interesting story, and I'm glad that you asked. So let me give you a bit of a background. So I come from a middle-class family. My dad was a cop in UP. That is where I was born. I was born in Meerut. And we kept moving every 2 or 3 years. We kept moving. And then cop's life is a tough life. So again, I talked about how certain things look from outside and how they are from inside. It's always very different. So I looked at my dad's work life very closely, and it was a tough life. In our family, since my dad was a cop, the only thing that was always talked about as my career option was getting into a government job, preferably civil services, be an IAS or an IPS. But then looking at my dad's life and the kind of struggles that are part of a government job, it kind of got eliminated in my mind, so I did not want to get into government job. And in absence of that, there was nothing else, because there was nothing else that my parents really wanted me to do. And other than my parents, there was no guidance from anywhere else. So it was kind of vacuum for me. And I continued my school studies with that kind of vacuum till my 10th class. And the school I was studying in Pantnagar, near Nainital, that was till 10th standard. So once I completed my 10th, I had to move out, and my parents decided to move me to Meerut. That's where I was born, as I said, and we had some relatives up there. So I moved to Meerut, and in this relocation and so on, this 11th standard, that full year just kind of rushed through. It just vanished before I could realize. And lo and behold, I was in 12th standard. And right at the beginning, I saw all my classmates filling up some forms. And, when I checked with them, they told me that, these are forms for medical entrance exams and engineering entrance exams and so on. That was truly the first time I got to know of anything outside of IAS and IPS. So, I said, okay, this sounds very interesting. So I should also be doing this. And fortunately, again, it is not that I planned for it and I knew that I would possibly be filling up these forms. I just somehow had both biology and maths with me. So I could actually fill both. But then, when I thought about it a little more, I realized that each time I'm in the zoology lab and I had to dissect a frog or something, and if there was even a trickle of blood, I would really go dizzy, So that told me that no, medical is certainly not going to be a profession. I don't want to faint on the operation table, while the surgery is on. So that kind of got ruled out. So what was left was engineering. Okay. So that is what happened. I filled up the forms that time. It was not just one entrance; there were multiple entrance exams. So I filled for all those entrance exams, including G and MNREC, and Roorkee used to be a separate exam that time. It was not clubbed with G. So filled all that. Fortunately, got selected for Roorkee as well as for IIT, and chose Roorkee because being in UP, born and brought up there, Roorkee had that special emotional appeal. So got into Roorkee. So that is how it is. And I believe that, life kind of, it's a combination of destiny and our deeds. And there are already a lot of things that happen and they prepare us for our future. So the fact that, I could really eliminate a few careers because of my experiences was again part of that. And then choosing Roorkee over IIT was another big thing at that point in time, and I did so. I'm very happy now because Roorkee is a great institution, and I'm happy that I chose. But again, life kind of prepared me for that kind of an outcome. So And I'm sure if you look at your life, you will also find similar kind of things where life has prepared you for doing what you're doing.
I think now what I'm doing, the podcasting part, I think life has prepared me for that. But the previous options, I don't think so. So I would like to narrate one tiny story from my life. So my mom got transferred to Mumbai when I was in fifth standard. I was 10 years old. And my father declared that I cannot take care of this child alone. Please take her with you. And I hated change. I was living peacefully with my school teachers and I had my friends. I used to sit in one corner, do all my drawing. I hated change. I hated to move to new places and meet new people. That being said, now that I talk a lot, nobody believes that story. So I went to Mumbai. I used to sit in a corner in the staff room, and the principal of that school was really concerned. He said, "Why are you sitting in a corner? Why don't you come with me?" He used to take rounds of the school. So he used to hold my hand and he used to take me around, show me the entire campus every day, introduce me to the teachers from outside the classroom. So he used to tell me that this teacher teaches math, this teacher teaches English. Look at how she teaches. It's nice. Look at the kids. They're so nice. So the time came when he finally convinced me that this is a good school to be in. And I joined. I finally left Pune, went to Mumbai, stayed there. And the moment I joined, he got a promotion and he was about to leave. Now, the teachers did not know that I know him well. So when I volunteered to give a speech on his farewell, the teachers were really shocked. And they actually went to my mother and said, "Are you sure your child can do this?" So my mother said, "Why don't you just give her a chance? She will be preparing a draft anyway. So I will share the draft with you." And I don't remember what I wrote, but I had written a big speech, which I went. That was the first time I went on stage. I saw ghosts everywhere. Everything was white, and but I was able to narrate what I had in my heart. And once I was done, the principal made sure that he took that speech with him to Bangalore. He said, "I want this speech. I'm going to keep it with me forever." And that was my first tryst with stage. That was the first time I started talking officially. And I have not looked back since. So
That's such a wonderful story. And yeah, that is what I very firmly believe, that there is a weave that we need to understand and identify for ourselves. Incidentally, I am reading this book called Nehru and Bose's Parallel Lives. It's a book by Rudranshu Mukherjee. And it kind of compares the lives of Jawaharlal Nehru right from his childhood and Subhash Chandra Bose from his childhood right up to the freedom movement and thereafter. And it essentially gives this idea very clearly that there are things that happen in one's lives, and it kind of prepares you for what's coming. So it's very difficult to say whether our deeds lead to destiny or destiny leads to deed. That debate will always remain. But I think it's important for us for look for these signs in our life, and that will give us a lot of understanding about what's the right thing for us to do in our career and in our life.
I agree with this point, but I feel now I have been able to look back. When I'm 28, I'm able to look back and see that this was the trajectory of the choice that I had, depending on the kind of strengths that I have. But now the times have changed so much. Youngsters have so many more choices, and at 16, I feel that they don't have that kind of a mindset to find the right career choice. So, what do you suggest is the right approach for choosing one's career in that case?
That's a great question, Amrita, and I fully understand where you're coming from. Things have really opened up in last 20 to 25 years. There are so many more career opportunities which are out there. So I normally would talk about the two C's. So on one hand, let us look at clarity. and on the other, the choices. So, at 16 or early in one's age, there is a plethora of choices. There are a huge number of choices to pick from, but there's limited amount of clarity. And as the person grows, the clarity keeps increasing and the choices, they keep reducing. So, you have much lesser number of choice after you have already been through life and been through your career some bit. So now you have better understanding of your strengths and of your interests and passion and so on. But then now, after having spent so much time doing something, it becomes a little difficult to choose something else. So this is the kind of paradox that we are in. The only thing, and one good thing is that the choices have increased. So the only thing that is obvious now is enhance the clarity. So, for the youngsters, I would say, try and learn as much as you can about your own self in terms of what your natural talents are, what your interests are, what are the different kind of careers out there, and what do those career really demand in terms of efforts and in terms of skills and so on. So I think that is something that can then help one pick up the right kind of career from those umpteen number of choices out there. So I'm sure, like in schools and there are these career counselors which are there who are there to help, and that could be a great start point.
When you talk about this, during my time at least, there were career counselors who had come to the college. They had a typical structure, and on the basis of that structure, they told us that you can either be a doctor, engineer, or an architect. So they gave us only 3 career options. And since there are only these 3 options that are given to us, and we don't know the scope of the other career choices. So I had seen people read the news on television, and I was really interested in broadcast journalism. But at that age, nobody told me that I could get into mass communication or I could get into broadcast journalism. That is something that really pinched me when I passed out of college. And I feel that these career options are really less or not told really well to our generation. Or I don't know whether the current generation has that kind of privilege, but I hope they do. Is there any other source by which they will be able to find better clarity?
Yeah, truly, that's very unfortunate that, even now in India particularly, people normally, take only a few careers as good careers to have, like, be a doctor or an engineer or an architect and so on. But there is a lot more out there. And, a lot of my, kids in my social network, they are picking up those careers. I know of somebody who's now a chef, and you are doing podcasts. That's great, and so on. So that's really wonderful. And in terms of resources, there are a lot of information that is there on the net, and particularly, I came across this website called mynextmove.org. Now, this is a website by Department of Labor of the US government. It's called mynextmove.org. And it is such a wonderful site. It covers so many careers in terms of what those careers are all about, what are the kind of skills that they require, what is the kind of temperament you must have for those careers, how can you prepare to get into those careers, what is the kind of education you will need, what's the demand and supply that is there currently, what is likely future for that, and even the compensation. Now, of course, the thing is that this is very US specific. So when you look at the compensation data and all that, that may not apply. But then I think a lot of that information does apply to careers worldwide. So that's one resource, and there are similar kind of resources which are there. So I would certainly encourage the youngsters to look at mynextmove.org and also research a bit more. In addition to that, I think talking to people who know you well is also a good idea, So there could be relatives that you have spent time with, or there could be your neighbors if you are not moving too much. So there could be people who know you from childhood. Talking to those people can also give you some good insights in terms of what your strengths are, what your interests are, and so on. Because, see, I believe that eventually the success is a product of talent and practice. So you have to have, the basic ability to do something, and then to hone that further, to bring it to a certain level of expertise, you need to practice. Like, if you look at Sachin Tendulkar, he's a prodigy, so he was possibly born with that great talent. But then to reach that level, he practiced a lot. And to be able to sustain the practice, continue to do it, it can only happen if one has genuine interest. If there is a passion, if there is discipline and hard work, only then you will be able to get to that level of practice. So it's always good to talk to as many people. And we already talked about, introspecting and seeing what are the signs that life has given you so far. So that's also a good thing, So for example, there are some kids, who have been great at drawing or painting when they were small kids, like 5 years, 6 years. And then, of course, they got caught in the school system and everything got sidelined. Yes. So, taking those cues could also lead to, some extra information that may come handy in terms of choosing the right career for oneself.
Okay. So, well, since you're saying that if we have clarity, we will be able to find the right career path. So are you saying that if you had the clarity much earlier in your life, you may have not moved across careers? And if you had a choice to go back in time and relive your career, you would have chosen multiple careers or stayed with one?
This sounds like a trick question, So, yeah, it's like, very easy to devise in retrospective, So, so, now that I know all the ups and downs I went through, it's very easy. But then, let's be honest about it. As we already talked about it, when we are going through it, we don't know everything, right? So we have past that we know almost 100% about. We have present, which we are living, and then the future is completely unknown. So we are living in that kind of situation. And given that, even if I have to relive my life, I will again not have all that clarity. So I would go with the fact that I was possibly born for this kind of multiple careers. I was prepared for that. So look at my early childhood. As I said, every 2 to 3 years we had to move, which meant new school, new friends, new setup, and that kind of put me in this mode of always wanting to do new things, being in a new situation. And I think that is what still gives me a lot of kick and excitement, when I am doing something new, learning something new, and so on. Now, having said that, let me get to your question, and which is a very, very important question. I really appreciate the great intro that you put together for me. And, it may sound very fascinating for someone who has been doing the same thing all through. So is now an expert on the given field that the person is working on, right? May just feel that, wow, I could have done this and this could have been much better. No, I don't think that one option is better than the other. So it is based on, people's natural inclination, preference. There are some people who are, good at going very deep in one subject, so their width will be limited, but they will really go very, very deep into that, and that gives them all the excitement, all the enthusiasm to keep learning more. And on the other side, there are people who would want to be, if I may call it that way, jack of all trades. So they would want to have reasonable depth, but in a lot of areas. So to say one is better than the other, I would say let the person decide on what works well for the individual. However, having said that, I will say that it's important to stay unsettled. No matter what you are doing, make sure that you are not in your comfort zone, you are not feeling settled. Stay unsettled. That means you be curious, you keep learning, and keep yourself in a situation where your survival depends on your learning more. Depth or variety, as I said, that depends on individuals. So based on what the inclination is, person can choose. So for me, so far it has been multiple careers. Going forward, I'm sure there will be many more in whatever life is left. So I'm going to certainly try to do more, learn more things. You did talk about wellness and therapy. So that's another area. So after having spent almost 20 years in HR now, that's an area which is really, exciting for me, and I'm learning more and more every day about that. So that's what my journey is, and I'll keep doing more of that.
Okay, so you prefer to be unsettled. That's wonderful. So, well, I would like to ask you, if there are multiple things that I want to do, is it important to have a formal education in this path of exploring, learning, and staying unsettled, or I can just learn on my own?
Well, that's a wonderful question. And before I get to the formal or informal part of it, let me say very clearly and loudly, education is important. So education essentially, if we look at it, is or could be defined as acquiring knowledge about something and then transforming that knowledge to skills through practice. So that is what education is, right? And that is required for all careers. So whether you are in dance, or you are an engineer, or you're a doctor or architect, or even doing the most mundane thing, even then you require knowledge about that, and then the practice to transform that knowledge to skills. So with that definition, I cannot envisage anybody doing anything without education. So let's be clear on that first. Now, the second question, or second part of the question, is whether formal education is necessary. I would say it really depends on the field you are choosing, the career that you are choosing. There are certain fields where formal degree or a certification is mandatory for you to even enter that profession. Let's, for example, take the medical profession. So no matter how many books you read about medicine or surgery, you may even go ahead and perform 10,000 surgeries, secretly. But then, and let's assume all those are successful based on all the study that you have done yourself. But nobody's going to take you in as a doctor in a hospital or a medical institution based on that. They will certainly ask for a formal degree or a certificate. So likewise, there are other professions which demand a formal degree or a professional course to be completed. So those are the ones where you don't have a choice. For the others, it's completely up to the individual to go the formal way or self-learning mode. And it will largely depend on the preferred learning style. So each one learns in his or her own way. And some people learn well in a structured manner, going to the classrooms, doing assignments, somebody checking those assignments,
Right.
that pressure must be there for one to perform. And there are other people who are willing to just jump in, roll up their sleeves, dirty their hands, and learn through kinesthetics, by doing things themselves. So again, there is no standard formula here. So if that option is there of going formal or informal, I would say it's up to the individual to choose, to decide based on what the learning style is. The only caveat, and I must bring in this caveat out there, is, at times the fields which do not demand formal education, they may appear very attractive, right? Because, there is no entry barrier and I can just, get into it. And hence I may just, feel motivated to get into those careers or those fields. But the word of caution there is that since there is no entry barrier, there is going to be one huge rush.
Yes.
And second, there possibly won't be any professional standard to determine the criteria for success. So, classic example for nowadays is stand-up comic. So I have a huge respect for that profession, and in no way I'm saying that people out there don't deserve to be recognized. I really appreciate what they are doing. They are making people laugh and they are raising a lot of great issues. But then I see a lot of rush, a lot of people dropping their careers, what they were doing. Some had been engineers, some had been, and they are just jumping into that. And some of them are great comics. They are great stand-up comedians. Others are not,
Yes. That is
I look at, and, I ask them, hey, why are you here? What are you doing? Just because there was no entry barrier, there was no requirement for a formal education, and you just saw everybody jumping to this side, you also did the same thing, doesn't make sense to me. So that's a big thing to be kept in mind for the fields that don't demand formal education.
That happens to be true, actually. Even I was planning on getting into stand-up comedy because everyone was doing it. And I feel the reason why everyone or most of us are inclined towards going in that field is because we sit with our friends and we keep on cracking jokes and they find us funny. And now since stand-up comedy has become a career option, so our friends keep on telling us that, hey, why don't you try for stand-up comedy? You're so funny. And then when you go on stage, you realize that there are a complete different level of skill sets required to make sure that you are standing on stage and not buckling down at your knees, because it's a scary world out there. You need that kind of stage presence. You need to know how your audience is going to respond or how to draw that kind of a response from the audience. And that only comes from practice. That only comes from, as you said, getting your hands dirty and going and learning how to do it. But since most of us don't take that kind of an effort because we don't have that kind of an inclination and we are just going with the flow, we tend not to improve in the field. So yes, I think somewhere it's necessary to get our hands dirty and learn through practice, hopefully, if not a formal education.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I am reminded of, and I must bring that in now, while it did work out very well for me eventually, but somewhere the trigger for me to move from manufacturing to advertising was, again, this lot of feedback that I was getting from everywhere, that I am very creative and I'm wasting my time in a mundane and routine field like engineering, and I should do something more creative. And that is what made me explore advertising, and it really eventually worked well for me. But then, the point is that when I entered advertising, I think that was the first time when I made my first big career move. And I realized that, hey, no matter how it looks from outside, when you get into something, it's going to be the same rigorous hard work, and if you are not willing to do that, nothing comes easy in life, and there's no free lunches.
True. Agreed. Completely agreed. Well, thank you for giving this inspiration. I think people will make sure that they learn some kind of course, even if it is online, offline, whichever works for them, and they improve their field of expertise. Well, you're also a wellness expert and a therapist. So, what is the impact of being unsettled on one's personality and mindset?
So, first of all, being unsettled is a natural thing, right? So, everybody's unsettled. There is nobody in this world who can call oneself settled, because at best of what is happening with you as of now in this moment, but very next moment what is going to happen, nobody has the power of knowing that. And with that definition, everybody is unsettled, right? So if unsettled is something natural, then of course it cannot have any adverse impact on one's personality and mindset. Because anything natural will not going to harm you, right? So as long as you are living your life in absolute, life is truly joyful. Wherever you see, people who, who are contained within themselves, have that feeling of content, you'll always find them joyful. The suffering comes moment there is comparison, and moment there is societal pressures, moment there is peer pressure. That is where the suffering starts happening. So let's understand that everybody is unsettled, everybody is going through their own fair share of ups and downs. And what is happening with you is uniquely crafted for you. That is something that has been designed, that journey has been designed, and one should feel proud of being in that unique position on that unique journey, instead of worrying about what's happening with the other person. Because see, the grass is always going to be going to be greener on the other side. And again, social media has added fuel to the fire. People, they put all those nice photographs, which is great, but then nobody puts photographs of sorrowful moments, right? So everybody puts photographs out there of joyful moments, of some celebration, and then at a collective level it appears that everybody is celebrating except you. So you are the only one, it seems, who is going through a bad patch, which makes it even more miserable. So let's understand that no, that's not true. And everybody is unsettled, everybody has ups and downs, and so is true with you as well. So with that, as a wellness expert and a therapist, I would only say, try and live your life in absolute. Be very grateful for all the blessings that you have. All of us are very lucky to have, so many good things for us and around us, right from our families and so on. So let's count our blessings and be joyful in the absolute in this moment.
Yes, as you said that comparison is the reason for suffering, and I completely agree with it. A few years ago, even I was struck by this problem. I used to sit and compare my life with someone else's, and I realized that it comes when you are discontent, or you are not joyful, or you're not happy with what you are doing. And well, since we have discussed this before, it only comes with introspection. If you look into yourself and you realize what are your strengths, and you just realize that this is what is your journey. Once you start doing that, you stop comparing yourself with someone else, and you are joyful, happy in your own, as your own one unit. And that is the end goal. You have to be happy. That is how the podcast also started. I wanted to tell everybody that everyone is going through a phase, everyone is unsettled, nobody is perfect, and the only reason that you see their social media presence as a happy presence is because they are content with what they're doing, despite the kind of struggles that they're going through. So, well, thank you for putting this message across.
No, absolutely. And I would just, add a little bit out there that, just be sure that, you are living the moment meaningfully, So you are doing the best with whatever resources you have. You are putting your best foot forward, and you are really enjoying doing what you're doing. If you are not enjoying doing what you're doing, then start focusing your energy on finding the options. So instead of sulking about it, instead of feeling helpless and powerless about it, think about what else you could be doing which can give you that joy, and then start working towards it instead of just crying over spilled milk, trying to sulk over what's not working. Start putting in your energy in identifying the right area that will be joyful for you, and start preparing for that.
Yes. So stop thinking about the problem and start finding the solutions.
Absolutely.
I would like to ask you, as an HR professional, how do you think the corporate world looks at unsettling?
A corporate world is not really, worried about unsettling or settling. They don't have time to think about all that. They are very business-focused people. They are focused on growing their business, including myself when I'm part of an organization. My entire focus is how can I make my organization more profitable? How can I grow the organization? How can I make the people who work out there more happy, and so on. So I don't have time to think who is settled and who is unsettled. So important thing is, at the end of it, corporate world is focused on two E's, and one is efficiency, which is plainly put as output divided by input. That means you should be producing more than what you're consuming. So be it in terms of work, or be it in terms of help to others, or whatever contributions you're making should be perceived to be more than what you're taking from the organization in terms of your compensation and other benefits and so on. So that's one E. The other E is engagement, right? So you have to show up, right? So you just can't go through the routine without showing up, without bringing your best to work. So today we live in a very competitive world, and employers, the organizations, they are looking for people who bring their best to work. So focus on these two things. And again, the thing is, if you are learning on the job, if you are doing something new, if you are enjoying what you're doing, then bringing these two E's into action is much easier as compared to when you are not. So that's what the corporate world is focused on, and that should be the focus for every individual working out there.
Okay. So one, if you're not happy in that environment, would you suggest that one should switch and find something that they love to be efficient and engaged in?
Wish I could answer that question so easily. One needs to certainly, first of all, analyze the reason of unhappiness. Because if you are, let me just step back. Happiness is something which is very fuzzy. There is no concrete definition of happiness, right? So in one moment you can be happy without any reason, and in the very next moment you could be unhappy without any reason. So I say happiness is like a zebra on a zebra crossing. Now you see it, now you don't. So first of all, it's important to identify what is the source of your unhappiness. If, for example, your boss just gave you a negative feedback, and you are unhappy about it, I don't think that's a reason good enough. You have to look at, okay, that negative feedback, is it coming from your poor performance, or is it something that your boss failed to see your effort and and hence gave. And then based on that, if it was your poor performance because of which the outcomes were not there and you got a negative feedback, then you need to focus on your performance. Switching is not the answer.
Right.
And if your boss overlooked something, you had put in your efforts, even the outcomes were good, you heard great things from other people in the organization, but your boss did not see, then make an effort to educate your boss on that, and show your boss the effort that has gone in and the outcome that you achieved, right? Hopefully that should change the situation. But if it is not any of these, your performance was good, everything was good, and still things are not working out for you for some reason, then yes, being in that environment is going to make it difficult for you. It's going to become a vicious circle where you keep getting deeper into the hole, and it's better to eject in that situation. But as I said, without giving it a thought, and I see a lot of youngsters doing that, they change jobs because they get frustrated in one place, or they don't like their colleagues, or they don't like their boss, or they just get a better offer from somewhere else, which could be a few thousand more than what you are getting currently. And that should never be the reason for one to change a job or a career. You have to really look at the real core issues out there, do some root cause analysis, figure out what's not working, and first put in the efforts to change that situation. If things still don't improve, then you possibly have a reason to do something else.
Okay, that is actually making a lot of sense, because as you said, I see a lot of youngsters, the newer generation, and I see them switching a lot of jobs left, right, center, and when you ask them, they are very discontent with the kind of jobs that they're doing. Hence, I had this query whether they should whether switching is an answer or whether they can work through it. And thank you for giving a solution for that problem. Well, coming to my final question, what message would you like to give the young and upcoming unsettlers out there?
Well, we have talked quite a bit on various things already. But before I go there, it's something I must say, that you are doing a great job, Amrita. This is very much needed, very much required to have a discourse around these aspects, because I certainly wish that I had this kind of guidance when I was young. There was somebody doing a podcast like you. I could listen to that and understand. And you are getting some great guests on your podcast. I have listened to a few of them, and they all have wonderful advice to offer. So thank you so much for putting this together, and I am sure that your listeners, your audience, is getting a great deal of learning and understanding out of these podcasts. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. I hope so too.
And coming back to your question, what message? So let me just encapsulate what we have been already talking about and what I said. First of all, unsettling is the fact of life. So it's not something that you have to strive for. It's not something that you need to acquire. It's just about knowing and understanding that unsettling is life. you know, let's drop that notion of trying to be settled in our lives, because that is never going to happen. And life will keep throwing curveballs at you whenever you get into that notion. When you think that you are settled now, life will offer you something which will get you back on that mode of unsettling. So that is the first thing. It's important to keep learning. That's the only way to deal with the situation of unsettling. If we need to deal with it, if we are wanting to enjoy this state of unsettling, the only way is to keep learning and make sure that you are having a lot of fun. Joy is the prime mover of life. And if you are not having joy, I'm not saying happiness. We already talked about happiness. I'm talking about joy. Joy is something which comes deep from inside. When you're doing something that you think is worthwhile, something that is adding value to you, to your environment, to the people around you. So make sure you are enjoying, you are having a lot of fun, and just keep going with the flow. And life is such an interesting journey. Trust me, everybody is a unique creation and a unique celebration of nature and all the magnificent forces out there. So just remember that you are special, unique, and keep living, keep learning.
Thank you so much. I'll make sure that I'm special and I'm unique and I'll keep learning. I hope others do too. Thank you for such an insightful conversation. I'm sure my listeners are going to learn so much from this episode. Thank you for doing this with me.
No, pleasure was all mine, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts with you and your listeners. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hello, people. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this episode and you like Unsettling, all you have to do is give me a feedback. And for that, please visit my Instagram page, that is Amrita Sukumar _unsettling. And you can send me a DM or you can send me a mail. All the details are there on that page. I would love for you to just tell me how you feel. Yeah. And I will get back to you. And if you have any people who would like to share their stories, you have to let me know, because I would love to listen to them. Till then, stay tuned to Unsettling. Like, share, subscribe, follow, let your friends know, and stay safe. Yeah? Bye.